Venba is an intuitive narrative cooking game with some puzzle elements that follows a mother's quest to restore her family's cookbook. With its bright colors and beautiful, vibrant art style, Venba truly takes the player on a journey. A decades-long spanning narrative woven through the medium of cooking recipes and revealing quick snapshots of a first-generation Indian immigrant family's day-to-day lives in Canada. Venba, released on July 31st, 2023, was developed by Vinsai Studios, a Toronto, Canada-based studio made up of 8 people. At the time of this recording, it's currently available for free on Xbox Gamepass and for approximately $15 on Nintendo Switch, PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Xbox One storefronts. The game follows a first-generation immigrant family, Venba the mother, Pavelan the father, and their son Calvin throughout the turbulence of raising a family and assimilating to a culture that isn't quite the same as the one they left behind. The story begins with Venba finding out she's pregnant and announcing it to her husband through a beautiful Indian dish. We also learn that the couple has been having issues finding stable employment in 1980s Canada since arriving from India, but before anything else is revealed, the game has moved forward and we meet 5-year-old Calvin. His friends at school call him Kevin, and he wants to eat pizza instead of his family's South Asian delicacies as to not be the odd one out amongst his classmates. His parents are understandably confused, but you know what can fix it? Cooking. The game tells many of its stories through the reading and interpretation of the cookbook and the recipes hidden within. These are basically the different levels the game offers up. Oftentimes, while attempting a new recipe, Venba will take a look into her memories of the past to remember how a certain step was followed. This usually expands into what was happening in Venba and her mother's lives at the time. Usually, it's the first time Venba learnt this recipe and how she herself felt about things. Similarly to all lives, there are good times and there are not so good times. The recipe book becomes sort of a conduit for the thoughts of a mother unsure of how to raise her son, unhelped by the fact that she left her own mother behind to do so. There are also traditional storytelling segments in which the characters simply talk to each other with player inputs pushing the dialogue forward. There were some small choices to be made within the dialogue, but it didn't feel like anything significantly changes based on your choices. I also enjoyed the cool ways they decided to display some of the unique conversations. For example, there's a couple of scenes where 2 characters are texting each other, and you could scroll up and down in the conversation to read the texts that were there before the cutscene even started. The old cookbook that Venba is attempting to restore has definitely lived a life. Some pages are completely unreadable, and some have conveniently lost just enough detail that you can get through with some trial and error. There are also hints given through the recipe flashbacks, and a literal hint button if needed. I avoided these, but now that I've finished the game, I wonder if there's more story hidden behind the hint prompts that are on every level. The core gameplay here is dragging and dropping ingredients into a pot in the correct order. It's worth noting you can try again anytime by manually holding one of the buttons, and the game will reset you to a recent correct step even if you've mistakenly done everything else wrong. There also doesn't seem to be a time limit even when the heat is on high and things would start burning in real life. The puzzles/difficulty come from trying to decipher what the recipe book is saying, as putting, say, the tomatoes in before another item will create too much water and ruin the entire meal. The dishes are mouth-watering. The biryani you make later in the game spoke to me on another level, watching all the spices and layers come together in bliss, all while the chef themselves is commenting on the aroma in the air. It truly put me in the mood for some Indian dishes. One part during the game that really got me excited but then kind of fizzled out was this part where they show that there's a list of recipes to be made. I was pumped to make this huge feast and do a bunch of new difficult recipes, but then it turned into basically a montage of drag and drop and hold A to stir events. It felt underwhelming, as I thought more could have been done with this moment of excitement they created in showing off the list and going through the motions of having each item get checked off one by one as you create the dishes. There wasn't really any head scratchers throughout the entire title, and I kind of wanted to have that one magical puzzle game moment. You know, the one where you put all the skills and concepts you've learned together throughout your whole time with the game and you solve this huge convoluted puzzle that leaves you all sweaty and proud? Didn't get it. I can't really get into any of the story beats without spoiling major parts of the game, but if what you've heard so far has enticed you, this is the game for you. I think Venba says a lot in its short runtime and tells its very compelling story in digestible bite-sized chunks, almost like the developers were making sure not to overdo it. I played through the entire game one time, and my Xbox stats say I played just under 3 hours. I didn't go out of my way for any achievements, however, I did notice that one of them was not making a mistake throughout the entire game, so there is some replayability baked in if you're looking for it. I assume some of the 3 hours of track playtime was the game sitting on the pause menu while I did other things. I think this game definitely deserves a playthrough if you enjoy mostly narrative stories told through games, and I'm excited for whatever's next from Vinsai Studios.